Continuing, we left off with the basics of the situation, which is this. The main thing you should realize is this ideology that was sort of the nonsense that was just, batted around the country for a while about, I don't know, private versus public things, regulation versus deregulation, all this type of stuff we talk about in this country that doesn't make any sense. But the fact is that it did get applied at the transnational level and put into action with the free trade agreements, and this has caused a water scarcity crisis that every single person needs to be aware of and to clean their head out of the whatever the left right thing is in this country, because this is different when it gets applied in this at that level of the above all governments and above the economy, and regardless of where the corporations are based, they don't belong to any country and they're not helping us. And if they're doing what they're doing, we have to find a way to intervene in this, but governments can't unless the people are aware. So here's the situation. Who calls the shots at the transnational level? That's the World Trade Organization and the World Bank, and they can do this because they loan large amounts of money to developing countries, and then the loans are conditional on all kinds of structural adjustments of their economy, many of which have been made here too. The free trade agreements remove all limits on foreign direct investment, all limits on what transnational corporations can do, and when they're playing in the agro sector, they are using water in a way that is simply too intensive and is depleting the world's resources so fast that it's become an emergency because of the amount of people dying because they don't have water to drink, and the fact that water is not replaceable, and a lot of the climate destabilization and gigantic storms are caused by that. Okay, but the main thing is we don't all want everyone to die together because we have no water to drink. Okay, now here's the story with that. Okay, the situation is this: the World Bank has been promoting privatization of water by way of these structural adjustment programs. Okay, what that means is that they will only make development loans to all the countries, like the agricultural countries, the types like in the global south and such that grow crops. They'll only allow them development loans if they make major structural changes to their economy, some of which involve allowing transnational agribusiness to come in and operate as they please. Their model, known as industrial agriculture, is simply too water intensive. And we all don't want to die, and the death toll of the amount of people who don't have fresh water to drink is creating an emergency. But if it goes on much longer, it's not only going to affect us, it already is. There's water shortage in all parts of America, but also other industries are going to discover that they have to go to a water consortium to get what used to be kind of available in lakes and rivers, all of which are shrinking. Okay, but the issue with these free trade agreements is that they bypass government restrictions and permit companies to sue any government through the World Trade Organization if their domestic policies interfere with the way in which they want to do business. So they can remove any, and have removed any, regulations on how much water they're pumping out to use in these industrial agriculture setups. Okay, the trade agreements, you should be aware of, nothing to do with free trade, nothing to do with free markets, nothing to do with competition, and nothing to do with trade. They are they're protectionist on the side of the investors at that level, at the transnational level. Every level of government then, which would include like regional governments, local governments, national governments, they're forced to adhere to rules that they didn't negotiate or agree to, but which are handed down from this World Trade Organization that makes the rules at the transnational sector. Policy making, therefore, is no longer in the hands of governments, like policy making with regard to making sure you can't deplete all the water in an entire region of a country or cause a massive drought and people dying of thirst. Anything that would prevent that is can be brought to the World Trade Organization as what they call a trade barrier. something like Monsanto, an agribusiness based here, can simply sue a government, actually sue an entire government on behalf of the multinational sector, okay? So as water gets used up that fast that it's so scarce, the growing scarcity has just simply led to a kind of like business of trading in water. Okay, the devastating effects it have on populations. This is the only way it was able to be stopped several times. One of the places was in Bolivia. It's sort of a semi-desert region, and water is very scarce to begin with. In 1999, the World Bank um, it said that they'd only provide loans if they privatized the municipal water supply in Cochabamba, Bolivia. Okay, um, and this was a concession to a corporation called International Water, which is sort of a division of Bechtel. What they asked them to do, or forced them to do, was to end all government subsidies to this public water industry they had and allow for full privatization and handing over control of the country's water to transnational corporations that would use it in industrial agriculture operations. Okay? Finally, a citizens' alliance formed, and the alliance actually shut down the city of Cochabamba for 5 days and did a mass mobilization, burning things all over their own area until finally they realized that this level of unrest among the population is going to lead to something very bad, and they pulled out of the agreement and the water went back under public control. But if that's the only way to stop this thing, that if you can only stop the transnational sector from doing something that would harm all the people, the only way to do it is to burn your country to the ground, then have a mass mobilization like that. That's not okay. That means the government was powerless to stop this from happening, and there's no international law that governs this, and the World Trade Organization is just there to help this kind of corporation sue an entire government. Okay? But what ended up happening is the country went under martial law, but it was just the reaction was just too severe, and they pulled out of the agreement. But this is inside all these trade agreements. These things that deplete the entire water resources of the planet and are causing this much death, and that the future looks very frightening if we're in that level of water shortage. No, it's unprecedented. No one will know what to do. So water rights just have to be reclaimed. And as we understood that people need fresh and clean drinking water, and that transnational corporations cannot do things like this. The problem is very few people know this is happening. Industrial agriculture itself as a method isn't really known about. It's used in food production and crop growing, but they simply don't recognize water as a limited resource, and they just use the most wasteful way of using water ever imagined. They cause droughts. They cause climate destabilization. Um, it's a phenomenon. They're causing what are called meteorological droughts that are linked to like the failure of rainfall. That means they're actually destabilizing the climate, taking all the water, causing droughts, and causing millions of children to die of dysentery because they drink from polluted rivers because there's no fresh water left. If there can't be a way to stop this from happening, no, it doesn't look good for the future. But the fact is, people have to be aware of it before they can ask we can ask our own government to do something about this kind of behavior that's going to cause all of us to die.